classroom numbers are going down, so I think that'll make it a lot easier for the caseload and the people who manage the caseloads to not quite have so many students. So I think that will fall into place a little bit better and easier this year. But it's also really important to have a highly trained staff and that accountability is put in place. And I think those right now, particularly the accountability, are a little bit weaker. So I want to see that strengthen up a little bit. Equipment, I think, is really important when it comes to equipment. That has to be purchased in anticipation of the needs, not after the school year has started, which happened this year, unfortunately. So I know that improvement needs to be made. ELL funding and rules changed this year. Additional funding was mandated by the state, so I believe that the school district is working with that. It still puts a tight budget on us as a district, but I think that we can provide quality staff and work with the students in such a way that we can build them up, and I think that's imperative. The ELL program, from my experience at the school, has actually done a pretty good job of working with students and trying to find ways to help them and benefit them and support them in a way that makes them successful. I have several students over 2 years that I watch, improve and strengthen their skills. The elementary level needs the support, make sure that they have the funding and the teaching staff in place to make sure that the students are getting all the help that they needed. But with Arizona, kind of mandating rules and laws and funding, we are going to live up to that as a district, and I know that will happen. As far as if we're dealing with behavioral issues, if we're dealing with ELL or SPED students in particular, when it comes to behavioral issues, I think that it has to be addressed by the teacher and by the site administration on a case-by-case basis. Every student has an individual plan, individual needs, individual requirements, and I think it's really important to evaluate those students by who they are, where they are, what their expectations are. It's not to say that if they're a behavior problem that you overlook the issue entirely, but it is to say, figure out what works best for that student to make the change. If the site isn't, or the teacher of the site isn't handling the situation in a way that's satisfactory to the parent, then the parent should go to the administrator, and after the administrator, if it's still not satisfactory, then they need to go to the special services coordinators, so the ELL coordinator or the department director, and then work the process. I think part of the problem that we have sometimes is that as parents, when it's our child, we tend to get emotionally involved, and we can sometimes flare up really quickly. I have a student who's on, my child, who's on a 504 plan, and I've had the 504 plan violated. I didn't overreact. I was not happy, and as parents often we get emotional, and sometimes we get a little angry. But I went straight to the teacher, or in this case, the counselor, and said, okay, here's the problem that I'm seeing, and I would really like to fix it. And they did. They went in, they addressed it, they took care of it. I think it's important that when it comes to our children, we have to try and stay calm, because it'll serve their best interest if we do that. And to work the process. And if the process doesn't work, if it doesn't work with the teacher, if it doesn't work with the site administrator, if it doesn't work with the district level ELL or SPED coordinators, then you go to the superintendent. And you look to make sure that these things are being taken care of. I've had a few conversations with the superintendent about SPED issues, and he's very receptive and very good at listening to what the information is, and he goes forth and tries to seek out the best possible answer, and that's the process that we need to continue. It's not going to be perfect overnight. It's a process. It will improve, and I believe that as this district continues to hire highly qualified, highly trained staff in each one of those areas, that we will see gains made. If it's a behavioral problem in general with students, just a general student population, I believe it's highly important to maintain consistency in its consequences. And I think that more importantly, that it's more important to provide activities for the students so that they can find another path to take. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff?
I have to agree with pretty much everything Carrie said. I've been involved with a lot of people in the SPED department and listened to some of their pain points. I've also talked to many parents who have children in the SPED department who also have pain points. And I know we've heard of lawsuits being filed for things not being done correctly or followed through. So it's a big issue for many parents in the community. I definitely think we need to again limit the number of emergency certifications in these departments, and going back to putting a person in a permanent position to do recruiting specifically for that. I've had the opportunity to speak with Heidi in regards to personnel and some solutions, and we talked about some ideas that we had that could help overcome that issue. I think we also need to develop a system of checks and balances to create accountability in multiple departments, because that seems to be an area that there's too many fires going on in the district, in my opinion, and I would like to see things managed a little bit better with the hiring of additional staff that would bring in more personnel. We need to address the IEP backlog and the caseloads, and we need to also keep in mind that, again, in my opinion, I believe there's a third of the district that doesn't go to school here. With the economy going the way it's going, schools can't continue to bus kids into their districts and take them from ours. I think eventually it's going to have to stop, and we're going to get these students back. Hopefully, if all three of us are appointed, or anybody else gets appointed to the board with all the changes that we'd like to make in our commitment to the district, they come back a lot quicker. With that happening, those problems are going to magnify, and so we need to address them right now. I'd like to see, again, some of the HR issues that are affecting those departments in terms of personnel get fixed. I have a proposal later on in our discussions here that I think will help solve that.
Okay.
Well, these two really leave nothing more to say. You know, we have been reactive in this area for so long that it's about time we turn it to be proactive. We need to catch up on the IAPs. We need to make sure we have certified, qualified staff, and that we have enough staff to address these. I agree totally with Jeff and Carrie, and they've had more conversations, and Carrie's obviously had more involvement in it. I have not had as much involvement. Just what I've read, what I've heard, what I've seen at the district meetings. At the school board meetings, they're talking about, you know, they're already making efforts to get out of the corrective action. And I believe we are making strides for it, but we still need to make sure that we are more proactive, and we need to make sure that we have the equipment. We can't wait till after the school year starts to hire teachers. They have to be certified. We need to make sure that we're doing this before the school starts and that we're not running into these issues for next year.